Hola, Cage. Just kidding. This is not Kid Nate. This is Dallas Winston. I'm with BloodyElbow.com along with my compadre, Zane Simon. Hi, Zane Simon. How are you?
What about Compañero? Can I be like Compañero?
Yeah, you can. What's habanero? Because that just came to mind and I don't know what it is, but I'd like you to
It's
be
a
my.
pepper.
There you go. Can you be my habanero?
Hmm.
Never
Potentially.
mind.
All right.
I gotta
Um.
work for that. I gotta take you out to dinner before we jump.
Yeah,
That,
yeah. I'd like to see a little something before I make a decision like that.
that's understandable. You wouldn't be worth it if you didn't have such high standards. That'll hopefully be all the stupid talk to get that out of the way. That's our stupid talk quota. We're going to run through Bellator 136. And happily, we have a long set of betting odds too that we can share with the class. Overall thoughts, we were talking a little bit beforehand. I would personally put this up as in the running, if not the best show of 2015, and that's not necessarily for one or two big fights, but the overall depth of this card is pretty phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a lot of name value and a lot of like title contender or former champ fight kind of level of fights. Guys that not only are they names that we recognize. It's not like it's just I don't know, Tito versus Bonner on the top or something, but it's names that are in contention for Bellator.
Yeah, like legit contenders or people that have the chance to be or have been in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let me quickly run down this card because it's a good one. This is in reverse chronological order, which is like backwards time and shit. Headliner, lightweight champion Will Brooks takes on, in my opinion, a very underrated Dave Jansen. Co-main event is Rafael Carvalho versus Glory kickboxer Joe Schilling. Um, it's kind of like a Russian accented duplex of fights to open up the card. Marcin Held, the Polish submission whiz, takes on Alexander Sarnavskiy, and former heavyweight champion Alexander Drago Volkov takes on Tony Johnson. So that right there, I would say, is a pretty solid featured card. Again, Spike TV at 9 o'clock. Um, Beginning at seven o'clock Eastern, streaming on Bloody Elbow, and this is, I believe, they're easily their best preliminary card of the whole year. One disclaimer I want to throw out. This is another thing we were talking beforehand. Bellator has been listing, all of the preliminary fights, several, anywhere from 6 to 10, but then only showing a handful on the as a true preliminary card, and then taking just some random amount and then showing them after the event. We believe their live stream is going to pick back up. So bear with us. This is our best guess for the the streaming preliminary card. Again, Bloody Elbow, 7 o'clock Eastern. Fabricio Guerrero versus John Teixeira. Was he on Tough One, Tough
Yeah.
Brazil One?
Yeah, John Macapa faced Hugo Viana in the UFC. As the like, now that you're off tough, here's your one fight in the UFC. Winner stays, loser gets cut fight.
And he's a Novo Uniao guy or Novo Uniao guy, and that was his only loss, Viana. Also on the preliminary card, lightweights. This actually is to me is my dark horse match by far at the event. Syed Awad, best known as the only right guy to beat and finish now champ Will Brooks,
Yes.
and Rob Sinclair, Bama lightweight champ. Yeah, like
Way
what
back in the day, yeah.
is he still though?
No,
Because
he's been. I mean, he's been. If he is, it's only because no, Bama overhauled their whole championship like selection about a year ago. Maybe they held like five title bouts, in like one event to crown all new champs. Because Sinclair hasn't fought for 3 years, so
hmm, but a really tough guy. I would say on the global scene. We'll get into that a little further, but Rob Sinclair is definitely a tough cat. This was another interesting surprise that Zane clued me in on. Preliminary card about three. Joey Beltran, former UFC heavyweight, former Bellator light heavyweight. Did he take a few
hmm
UFC bouts at
yeah, he
205?
took a few UFC bouts at light heavyweight as well.
Uh, and he's facing Brian the Predator Rogers, fan favorite. And I mistakenly assumed because Rogers has dropped a couple that he was going up to light heavyweight. But Zane has informed me and linked me to Joey's Twitter picture that Joey Beltran is dropping all the way down to 185.
The
Everyone check.
miracle of science.
Everyone check. Is he at Mexecutioner on Twitter?
Uh, I think yeah, or just search Joey Beltran on Twitter, or even just search Joey Beltran 185 in Google, and it'll come up.
And there's a picture of him doing a test cut to 186, and it's worth a look. Like, wow, homeboy has shrunk himself all the way down. He actually looks totally different, man. I mean,
Yeah. If by
cartoonishly.
totally different you mean cartoonishly frightening, then yes.
It's a little odd, but I mean, Joey's a good guy, and hell, I mean, good for him to go through that. Had to be a lot of effort, man, because he was I mean, not huge, but I mean, he was what 225, 230 maybe heavyweight.
Yeah, I mean he was sort of a standard regional heavyweight size, 6'1", 230, 235 maybe.
So that's a big amount. That's taking a salt bag worth of weight off your body. So Um, I guess I think we kind of unanimously agreed those are the fights we'll be discussing. We believe the final and fourth preliminary card match is going to be Jay Bogan versus Justin Governale, and I believe again that there's a handful of fights that won't be shown until after the main card on Spike TV. The two that jumped out to me, Chad George, and again, these aren't even being televised, and that's why I think this is the deepest card. Chad George, former WEC fighter, respectable dude, good scrapper, versus Mark Forgas. And then Kleber Luciano, old school Brazilian Jiu Jitsu pimp, and I believe he's a coach and runs his own team. Could be wrong there. But he's taken on Aaron Miller.
Yep.
Again, Zane pointed out there's Marcus Bonilla versus AJ McKee, and it turns out, credit to Zane again, that AJ McKee is Antonio McKee's son, making his MMA debut on the card. So that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
Solid though. I mean, top to bottom, can you think of a better Bellator card?
No, certainly not one as deep. Of all their fights on there, 90% of them feature recognizable fighters or fighters that have some interest around them and that you kind of want to watch and see what happens. So definitely as good a card top to bottom as they could put on.
Which is good because I was somewhat critical on the last Bellator card, saying, "Man, it seems like things have been really going downhill." And I'll be honest, this one really makes up for it because this is a good one. So again, I guess with a little emphasis on those untelevised bouts, we're going to talk about three of the four prelims and then spend most of our focus on the four main card bouts. Joey Beltran versus Brian Rogers. Walk us through this one.
Well, I mean, the big story here really is Joey Beltran's cartoonish weight cut. I mean, and that's not a great story to have going into a fight. To be like the big story about this fight is how will Joey Beltran look? Will he look like a skeleton in the ring? Will he, is he pulling the James Irvin idea here? Um, or is he going to be just, better? I don't know. I don't trust it. Basically, I don't trust Beltran dropping weight. And while Brian Rogers got uh, beat up and knocked out by Rafael Carvalho in his last bout, Carvalho's he's a pretty good fighter. He's pretty strong, good striker, decent fighter everywhere. And I don't. That doesn't look as bad for Rogers for me as this weight cut does for Beltran, honestly.
I might make things interesting and actually take Beltran here. And I don't disagree with anything that you just said. And normally I think that would be, enough of a question mark to steer clear of him. And as a huge Brian Rogers fan, it's been, I don't want to say disappointing, but I think everyone expected him to kind of continue that rise. And I guess just brass tacks of it, it seems like every fight he comes out, and he has done better of measuring his pace and aggression a little bit, but despite those efforts, it seems like if he can't come out and steamroll this guy in the first 2 or 3 minutes, things go south really quickly afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that. It's just, and I think he's adjusting to that. I mean, Carvalho was just the wrong opponent to adjust to that for. He was like, oh, I'm going to take my foot off the gas, not be as aggressive, facing a gigantic, powerful Muay Thai striker. Like, that's the wrong guy to test that against. I think he could have a lot more success with that against Beltran, who's not a power puncher and who can wear you down inside with long sustained volume, but that's exactly the kind of guy, like a tough guy like that is the kind of guy you want to be measured against. You want to stay outside, you want to make him chase you, you want to put him on his back and grind him and wear him down and beat him up. And I just think that, you know, Beltran is I can't see him being physically more imposing at middleweight.
I wouldn't call him a real physically imposing guy, although he does his best work in the clinch. I think he finally figured out just
Yeah.
make it ugly, get in contact range, and switch between just blistering bursts of like short range punches. And he's a speed guy, right? He's not a power guy
Yeah.
whatsoever, volume striker. And so I'm kind of torn because to me, longevity has been Brian Rogers' issue. We've seen him just slowly lose a little steam as the fight goes on, especially after the first couple minutes. And normally, Beltran is that kind of guy who will still be there. Like, you have to put him away. He's
Mm-hmm.
got a really good chin. Has anyone knocked him out besides Rampage? Wasn't that the first?
He just got knocked out in his last fight against
Newton,
Manuel
this
Newton.
spinning back fist. Yep.
Yeah.
But he's facing big boys, so even though, I mean, with that being the case, I think we're both that makes it an unknown. I'm actually going to lean a little bit towards Beltran just being able to maybe get beat up a little bit, but keep on throwing, and then maybe turn things around in later rounds. How do you see Rogers beating him though?
I see it could just grind him out for 15 minutes. Just kind of take him down, work him over, wear him out. I also could see him just knocking him out because that kind of water weight cutting leaves your brain more, susceptible to trauma. So I wouldn't be surprised if Beltran's signature toughness, because he's so dependent on his chin being there for him, I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up just being not being there.
So I just had to double check. Brian Rogers is 11-7, and of those 11 wins, exactly one was a decision.
No, I know it's not like I think that's the game plan he's trying to implement though now, and I understand it might not happen here, but I just have zero faith in Joey Beltran, like none, zero at 185.
All right, so that'll make it a little bit interesting. And I mean, my heart goes out to Brian Rogers. What a nice problem to have. God, I'm so used to coming out and just steamrolling people so quickly. It's hard to learn how to get into a regular MMA fight, and that's why I'm a big fan of his. I mean, athletic talent. I mean, the dude is. He seems to be one of the freakish athletes around, and he seems to have like all the right elements. Hopefully, he can put it together. And I like Joey too, so that's nothing against Joey. But all right, I think we got that. Oh, let me list the betting odds for that one. That's right. I was surprised. Brian Rogers is the favorite, although both are in the negative. Beltran, we have two different sites we're pooling from. We use Best Fight Odds, Five Dimes, and Sports Bet or Sport Bet. Um, Brian Rogers is minus 130 and minus 124, and Joey Beltran is minus 110 and minus 104. So I have no problem with those odds, really. I think I'm cool with that. You?
Yeah, I think it can be a pretty even fight, and I think Beltran. If this were a light heavyweight fight, it would be pretty easy to favor Beltran, but at middleweight, it's just he's too much of a question mark. So I'm not surprised he's not the favorite.
Yeah, and I mean, we spent the whole time talking about the unknowns, and I'd say those odds kind of reflect those. Moving forward, this one is one that I'm just really looking forward to. Syed Awad versus Rob Sinclair. This one's going to be a dogfight. I think Awad has been a little bit up and down, but got a lot of well-deserved love for that knockout of Will Brooks. His only loss, and I think Will is turning out to be a real serious talent. Awad has shown a really well-rounded game. Everyone thought he was just a slugger, but then he came out and I think who was that? He fought another UK guy, Martin Stapleton,
Yeah.
and crazily was like pulling guard, and I was like, holy shit, what's going on? And he ended up winning by submission and showing stellar grappling, stellar transitions. And afterwards, he said, I pulled guard because I didn't want everyone to think I was just a striker. Rob Sinclair, just a mean, scrappy bruiser. Neither of these guys are easy to put away. What are your thoughts on this one?
I gotta say, and I didn't even take the time to look at Rob Sinclair's old fights again because I just have no idea what we're gonna see out of somebody coming off that kind of layoff. Like, no matter what skill set he went out with, he's been out for almost 3 years now.
Do you know why?
He had a knee injury,
Ooh.
and so it's really hard to say what he's gonna come back with. What is he gonna want to do when he comes back? Is he gonna be the same guy? Is he gonna try something totally different? Will his game have changed a bunch? There's not really a lot of telling. And at that point, I also find it hard to pick him to win this fight. I mean, I think Awad's a really dangerous fighter. He's a fighter, he's been around a while, but he's still finding a lot of success. He's got a good power punching boxing style. And, I mean, the only people to beat him since 2011 are Dave Rickles and Will Brooks. And I don't think that Sinclair is going to be the next guy. It just doesn't seem very likely.
So, just some legit names off Sinclair's record. His last fight was a split decision win over Andre Winner. And he also has a first round TKO of Daniel Weichel, who ended up
Yep.
winning the featherweight.
That was at.
It was
Actually, I have no idea.
It was featherweight because he beat Des Green, but that's weird because he
But
submitted.
we're talking 2010 here, so I have no idea what weight class they were fighting at in 2010.
Yeah, and Weichel submitted Dennis Seaver, so they could have been all the way up at welterweight. Either way, Weichel's a crafty dude. That's a good win. One of his two losses is Paul Sass, and that was a split decision. So I think that kind of reflects a little bit. He's just really crafty. There's not one area where you can like exploit any weaknesses. He's just tough, good chin, big puncher, smart dude, and real scrappy. Uh, I would probably take Awad anyways, but now realizing that Sinclair's coming off 3 years, that is a long ass time. Even if you're training a lot, I don't always feel like you need to get in an official fight to stay in fight shape, but I do think 3 years without competing in an official match is like way too much. So I would definitely go Awad in that one. Betting odds agree, though not by much. Minus 170 and minus 164 for Awad. Sinclair's the dog at plus 130 and plus 136. Moving on now to our final fight on the preliminary stream, Fabricio Guerrero versus John Teixeira. I'm really high on Guerrero's. You?
Yeah, he seems like a really strong, really well-rounded fighter. I mean, he's just there's nothing he doesn't do pretty well, and the guys he's lost to are really only like top fighters.
One being the champion, Patricio Ferrer.
Hmm.
And that to me was the fight that I think allowed myself and everyone to say he was well rounded because before, so long time Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, phenomenal submissions. He came up out of a judo camp, so he's really well versed in clinch throws, trip takedowns. But what I was really impressed with, and he's a really young dude. I think he first came
Yep.
over at like 20 or 21, and he started to train with Team Alpha Male right away. Which, I mean, I don't think it gets any better than that for his game. But anyways, sorry, that was a big tangent. But after he had an admirable effort against Patricio Pitbull in a fight that a lot of people thought it was a huge step up for him, maybe too much too soon. But I thought that was a valiant showing. So now, yeah, he's a legit three-dimensional guy. I don't remember Teixeira. What Macapo is that his nickname?
Yeah. Macapa, John Macapa.
Macapa. So 17-1, Novo Nyao. What can you tell us about this cat?
Mostly he's kind of molded in like the prototypical Novo now Muay Thai style. Really. like not bad anywhere, really consistent, decent kickboxer. He just I don't know that he quite has the athleticism to be a great high level fighter with that style. He's not as powerful or as dynamic, and so he's a good hard test and a hard fighter to beat. But if you can get in on him and make him work really hard and all that, he's a beatable fighter. So it's one of the reasons that I'm not necessarily um it's why I'm kind of looking at Guerrero Guerrero here as as the favorite and expect him to win.
And the tough thing about him is he's long and lanky,
Hmm.
and he's starting to use that a little bit, which is smart because of his striking. Because then you have a tendency to want to get inside of his punches, and that's really where he wants you because then you're in clinch range. So I'm really high on the kid. I'm not sure what his ceiling is, but I think he's going to keep rising up in Bellator. He is the favorite, minus 180, minus 174. Teixeira at plus 140, plus 146. I'm somewhat inclined to think that the spread should be a little farther, but I can't say I'm super up to speed on Teixeira, and I'm kind of a Guerrero
Well, he's
guy.
only got one loss to his record, so it's kind of hard to. I think that that's why. I mean, he's coming in with a lot of good wins, and he's done well on the Brazilian scene. He won his Bellator debut by split decision. Maybe not the most impressive thing, but I can see why the odds would be close.
Isn't Guerrero 20-3?
Yes,
So one Bellator loss, and to
two.
get two Bellator
He
losses.
lost to Frodo Kaspalayev as
That's
well.
right, which is a travesty. I mean, I heard that there's some kind of contract dispute or some shit going on, but Frodo was a guy who had a super respectable run through the lightweight division and nowhere to be
Yeah.
seen now, which is too bad. All right, let's move forward to the featured card, Spike TV, 9 o'clock Eastern. The opener is going to be one of these two Russians. I believe it's going to be the heavyweights. Tony Jansen, Bellator newcomer. Or did he have one fight in Bellator?
Newcomer.
AKA guy, big dude. He's taking
Yep.
on Alexander Volkov. Talk about a big dude. Former champion, 6'7". Who you like in this one?
This is a tough one because it's sort of like the only thing Johnson does well is the one thing Volkov does poorly. I think I'm still gonna pick Volkov here just because Johnson's not really like a great proven finisher as a heavyweight. And he's he as a takedown top control guy, he's big and powerful, but he's not like gonna stop everybody powerful. It took him 3.5 rounds to get or 2.5 rounds to get a doctor stoppage against Tim Sylvia in 2013. Like it, there's just not a lot of raw power there necessarily. And Volkov is the kind of guy who's really tough, and so even if Volkov ends up on his back, I think he'll have enough chances to sort of right that and get up and make his way, get back to his feet enough in rounds and figure out maybe what Johnson's takedown entries look like well enough to outstrike him and start to pick him apart a little.
So beyond Tim Sylvia, two other fights on Johnson's record of note. First round rear naked choke loss to Daniel Cormier, and then he's got, I believe it was a 5 round decision win over Tony Lopez, who's another, maybe not super prominent or well known guy, but to me, I mean, if you beat Tony Lopez, that's something worthy of respect. So the big stat to me, or the one that stands out, is 6'7" versus 6'1" here. And I agree with everything you said. I think Volkov is shockingly fluid as a range striker for a
Mm-hmm.
heavyweight. I mean, especially for a heavyweight. I think that's pretty rare. Um, and I really agree with what you said in that I think he's going to get a read on Johnson's entries because he did pretty well against current heavy Minikov, Fiddly
Mm-hmm.
Minikov. And he did start to do that. He started to get a beat on how he was coming into the clinch, when he was ducking his head, when he would just follow behind punches and try to clinch upright. And I don't know enough about Jansen, but Volkov has been fairly comfortable off his back. I wouldn't say he's great off his back, or even that that's a great strength of his, but I do think that he's going to be scrappy and technical enough to just make Jansen work really hard. So we're both taking Volkov here. Betting odds have him as the biggest favorite on the card, minus 420 to minus 402. Jansen at plus 300 and plus 318. I'm actually pretty cool with that. Next bout, Alexander Tiger Sarnavskiy versus Marcin Held, Polish submission whiz. What do you think?
I think that Sarnavsky's going to lose, and it's he may be the more well-rounded fighter, and he's certainly got a very impressive record under his belt, lots of good wins. He's beat some very legit competition. His only recent loss is to Will Brooks, and before that, Rich Clemente back in 2012. And those are the only two losses on his whole record. So obviously Sarnavsky's legit. But I think it's the thing with him is that he's really willing to engage everywhere. Like for a guy with a heavy kickboxing background like he has, he really loves to wrestle and to grapple and to get on the ground and go after guys there and try and work his submission game. And I think that that's going to cost him here.
So, two things that make this interesting. He has shown a little bit of a weakness in the wrestling department. He's a pretty good size lightweight, and Rich Clemente didn't dominate him, but definitely had his way with him takedown wise. And then what I thought should have been extremely demoralizing is that Will Brooks fight was an ass whipping.
Yeah.
So much so that in the third round, it almost seemed like Tiger gave up. Like Will shot a takedown early in the third. He'd been holding him down and just paddleballing his head, and he kind of acquiesced to that takedown and excuse me, sorry, just kind of seemed to give up. He didn't even make a lot of escape attempts or whatever. And on the flip side, for as awesome as Held's submissions are, he's not a traditional wrestler. Now that doesn't mean by any, he usually has to be really creative, like some kind of flying shit, diving on a leg lock. He's definitely made improvements in those areas, but he's not the kind of guy that can just come out and change levels and put you on your back quickly. So to me, that makes this a really interesting fight. The thing I love about this is both of these guys are really young. Held much more so than Sarnavskiy, but these guys are pretty talented youngsters who can still show improvements and still learn a little bit. So I like this matchup. I really don't know who I'm picking here. Did you took Held, right?
Yeah, I'm picking Held. I think he's improved a lot lately. I think you're kind of underselling how much his wrestling and boxing have improved and how much more he's gone to a more standard and structured like takedown wrestling grappling approach.
Is he
Like
still at Roufusport now?
I don't think so.
He wasn't full time there, but he was spending like whatever, doing
Yeah,
a stint.
I don't know where he is right now.
And you're probably right. I did undersell that because his improvements have been well. Part of that is because he only kind of had the submission game before.
Yeah.
Huge improvements, and also he can do it from the clinch, and he can shoot traditional wrestling singles and doubles. I do think that his trajectory and ceiling is a little bit higher. Maybe I'll take Sarnavskiy here just to make it interesting, although I'm really kind of torn on this fight.
Yeah, I just think Sarnavsky's going to be too willing to dive in and try and take him down and try and work a submission of his own, and he'll get caught doing it.
I would agree normally, but on this one, he's got to know against Held. Like that's the one. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
I talked to him just the other day, and the first thing I asked him was, "Are you ready to outgrapple Marcin Held?" He's like, "I'll win anywhere. Like I'm ready for whatever.
really.
I'll take the fight wherever." Maybe that's just the standard fighter response, but that was, I asked Volkov the same question with Johnson. He's like, "I want to stand up. I don't, I know he's going to look for takedowns. I'm going to be standing up, and I'm going to beat him there." And Sarnavsky was much more like, well, wherever the fight goes, I'm ready. And I think against Held, that's exactly the wrong attitude to have.
You hear that, y'all? Zane Simon's got Mother Russia on the red phone. He just picks it up and asks.
That's right.
Direct. I'll take Sarnavskiy just to make it interesting, although wouldn't be surprised to see Held win, and I think this is a close one. I'm kind of surprised Sarnavsky's the favorite, minus 165, minus 159. Held is the underdog at plus 125 and plus 131. I guess that's close, but to me it should be a tad closer.
Yeah, I think Held is a great bet as an underdog. Great bet.
As an underdog, definitely. I'm sorry, man, I got something stuck in my throat. Up next is the co-main event. This might be a good one. It has the potential to be, for sure. Glory standout. Tournament winner, Joe Schilling versus Rafael Carvalho. Go ahead and run with this one.
This I think is I don't know. This I it's really hard not to pick Joe Schilling here just because of how sharp his striking looks and it looks like he's adapting it well to MMA. He spent enough time toe dipping and working with MMA fighters to understand that like the differences between MMA kickboxing and kickboxing. I think we saw that nicely with his Melvin Manhoef bout, where Manhoef has a lot more experience working in a cage than Schilling does, and Schilling still came out and just totally outgunned him. So I want to pick Schilling, but like he's proven so little. That Manhoef fight was a perfect stylistic matchup of a guy who was absolutely guaranteed, no matter what, to stand in front of him and try and beat him to the punch. And Carvalho is he's another aggressive striker, an aggressive Muay Thai guy, but he has a few more wrinkles in his game than Manhoef does. And I just I got to go with Carvalho just because I can't yet trust that Joe Schilling is like if Carvalho tries to take him down at all, I have no idea what Schilling will do.
Well, and it's hard to trust Schilling because even though he picked up an MMA win, that was basically against Manhoef, a kickboxing match with little gloves on. I mean, no, no,
Yeah.
and they even both said beforehand there will be no takedowns, or mostly Melvin said that because he had more MMA experience. What makes it kind of interesting is Carvalho is clearly a striking specialist, a
Yeah.
stand-up guy. So then, even though it hasn't had a looming presence in his past fights, how much can he rely on some of the auxiliary techniques, clinching takedowns, and even though he hasn't shown it, I'm going to agree with you there, and I think he would be nutty to stand with Joe Schilling, and I don't think that Schilling can either turn his well, he could. I don't think it's likely that he can turn his lights out quickly coming in for an entry, or that he has the takedown defense to keep him off. And it's not like if Carvalho gets him down, it's an immediate sub, but I do think that it's the deficit. And really, I mean, with as far as MMA versus kickboxing striking, Carvalho is a bad man.
Yeah.
He's definitely not going to be able to stand there and take shots like he did against Brian Rogers. But I think and hope that he'll know that. But I'm going to go with Carvalho on that one too. Interesting.
It's
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's just the things like the big unknown to me is I would have to assume that Carvalho will probably have to get hit a couple times to figure out that he doesn't want to strike with Schilling. I would bet on that, and he getting hit a couple times could mean getting knocked out.
Yeah, I was
Like
going to say he might not have that luxury to.
he might not, but I would be willing to bet that he will come out looking to strike and then get hit and then turn to other skills. And then as Schilling is an MMA fighter, like we really don't know what exists for his game beyond his kickboxing because all of his like submission losses where he, was very much an incomplete fighter, like that was 2008. We've only seen him in one fight over the past, 7 years, and that's against Manhoef. So we really don't know what the rest of his game looks like at all.
And for whatever it's worth, I do think that he has a kickboxing style that will translate very well to MMA. I mean, the dude is vicious.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a guy in there looking to like peel off a really flashy looking combo quickly and get out. I mean, he's a bruiser. He's got nasty, nasty elbows.
Yeah.
That's not enough to steer me though. Although if Carvalho, if he does what you say, I mean, Schilling will paste him. I don't think Schilling is the kind of guy that you can afford to realize, holy shit, this is a world class striker. By I
Yeah,
don't
the
think
first minute of the first round will probably tell you everything you need to know about this fight.
yep, with the last part of that minute, I think, being the most telling because either Schilling's going to get off or Carvalho's going to do his thing. But this actually, I'm kind of looking forward to this, and it's a good idea to bring Schilling over because it
Hmm.
kind of gives Glory some hype and adds some fresh talent and excitement. I mean,
Hmm.
it's the other thing in matchups like this. If Carvalho were to take him down and lay on him, that is almost as good as a loss because everyone's going to hate that. Everyone's coming into this hoping to see some leather fly. I don't make the rules, but I do think that that's the case here. Did I read the odds for this yet?
No.
Schilling is the favorite, minus 140, minus 134. Even though I don't think either of us agree, I don't think we're surprised either. Carvalho, the underdog, at plus 100, plus 106. I would say that that's a pretty legit bet to take a peek
Yeah.
at. Up to the main event, lightweight champ Will Brooks defending against Dave Jansen. Did you chuckle when I said Jansen was underrated?
Yes.
You don't think so?
I think he's a weird dude, and I think weird dudes tend to get really overlooked in general because they are really weird.
You have something against beekeepers? He's an avid, or used to be at least, beekeeper. He's different. He's a real big-minded guy. Kind of a real, yeah. He's out there a little bit, but I like him. Good dude. And just from a strict fighting standpoint, I mean, how many? He's only had two, 3 losses.
Two, I believe, in his career, and they were to Ricardo Lamas and Kamal Shalarus in the WEC.
There you go. Yeah. So, I guess I would say unanimously across the MMA world, if you hear the name Dave Jansen, it's not being treated with at least as much as I respect him. A gritty dude, tough dude, good wrestler. He's actually made some pretty good improvements too. Nasty from the front headlock, good chokes. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm picking Will Brooks here. I think Will Brooks could hold his own in the UFC at this point. Then
Hmm.
everybody shit their pants because as soon as I say that, everyone takes the champion, i.e., the best fighter in the whole world, and compares. Yeah, okay, he might not be there yet, but I think he's got serious, serious talent. Weird fighter, atypical, hard to figure out. Everyone thought he was just a lay and pray guy, and all of a sudden he not only really improved his stand up, started doing a lot of weird shit, front leg side kicks and nice high kicks. What do you got here?
I mean, Brooks is a great athletic talent training at a great camp. So, like, and he's got a good chin. We've only seen like one flash KO in his whole career, basically, and that can happen to anyone. Fighters get flash KO'd. That doesn't necessarily mean a guy's got a bad jaw or anything like that. Especially when you see it just happen like once. If it was something that started happening regularly, you might think more about it. But he's got a great, he's big, he's tough, he's got a great chin, he trains at a great camp, and he's improving the way a fighter like that should. He's 3 or 4 years in now, and he looks like a world class fighter. And I think at lightweight in Bellator, it's hard to pick against Will Brooks. Now we've seen that with Michael Chandler as well, though. I mean, that Chandler was a guy who it looked when he was at his best and running through because Chandler's only been in since 2009. Like he's still a guy like right in his prime right now, and all the way up through his split decision losses to Eddie Alvarez and Will Brooks, it was hard to imagine anyone just beating Mike Chandler outright. You know, and then Brooks did it. So it definitely sets the table that there could be somebody out there that is on the way up through Bellator that will beat Brooks, but I really don't think it's Dave Jansen.
And I agree because Jansen, at his roots is a wrestler, and I think Will Brooks is just a dominant wrestler. Everyone was talking, Chandler, phenomenal credentials, and even though Chandler got the better of their takedowns, what really impressed me was that Brooks, in my mind, was clearly the better scrambler. I mean, once it
Hmm.
got on the ground, he was, and that's shocking for a wrestler who's done so much with his overall game and with his striking to show that kind of like transition work and positioning knowledge. I mean, he is feisty as hell on the ground. Chandler was super exciting for that balls out style, but Will Brooks might not be labeled as a super exciting guy like Chandler, but I think that makes him a lot more economical. He's said before plainly, if I can take you down and hold you there and beat the shit out of you, I will do it. And I have no qualms about it whatsoever. Fans might not dig that, but as far as a guy looking for longevity and improving the way he is, I think that's a pretty deadly combination there. So I actually think Brooks might be able to sub him out, or I see him getting a dominant position and either finishing by sub or just pounding him to the finish.
Yeah, I could see a TKO. Maybe just like a wear TKO where he just beats up Jansen for a long time. Because the thing with Jansen to me is that he's one of those guys who's really skilled everywhere, but isn't just isn't an elite athlete. And he's been able to win a lot of fights by being really skilled. By I mean, he beat Marcin Held in 2013 by being the more well-rounded, well-developed fighter. By having more tools and being able to keep himself from getting submitted, and then Marcin Held being just underdeveloped. And he was able to beat Rick Hahn. I mean, partially, I think Rick Hahn's just faded really quickly, quicker than people thought he would. But just, at that point, by being a more well developed striker, Hahn couldn't take him down easily, and then Jansen had the more well rounded, more difficult to predict striking game. So he's got a little of everything for everyone, but I think, just when you get at a certain point, Brooks, he has all those skills too, and he's the better athlete. So,
And given all the praise, for all of his skills and improvements, I think still the thing that stands out is the dude is not, he's like a freak athlete. I mean,
yeah.
quick, fast, excellent reactions, excellent timing. He's getting a little crafty too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he is, actually, I said someone Volkov was the biggest favorite on the card till now. Will Brooks minus 600, minus 570. Dave Jansen the underdog at plus 400 and plus 430. What are your thoughts on that?
I am pretty okay with it just because Jansen is not a great finisher. Like, he's really only ever been a submission finisher, and a lot of that has gone away. Like, the better his competition is, he doesn't get submissions. Like, he's not that venomous a submission guy. And, like, if you're not going to be if you're going to give Brooks that much time to work with, and you're not going to knock him out, and you're not going to submit him, then it's really hard to imagine his path to victory.
Yeah, because he's going to have to outstrike him consistently or out wrestle him to fill that space, which
Yeah.
neither of which are lucrative options. I'm looking up the size real quick just because I know Will Brooks is a pretty big and long dude. He's 5'11". I want to say Jansen is a little bit shorter than that.
Jansen's 5'9".
Well, there you go. Not much, but considering the tough order he already has in front of him, um, yeah. So I think Brooks is going to look good there. I do think Jansen will surprise a little bit just because he's scrappy, but I think this is going to be Ill Will's fight to win. That's all we got. Anything else you want to add, reflect upon, philosophize?
Nah, it should be a fun card. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is going to be a real good one, and this is one that I will be planted down for the prelims too, because that's not fluff. I'm actually really looking forward to watching a lot of those too. So, all right, any shows you want to plug? I mean, I'm kind of surprised you
I
were
got I
briefed.
got a big interview with Will Brooks coming out this week, so people should watch out for that. And then, other than that, I don't know if we're doing the prospectus this week. That may be canceled, but you know, we got the sixth round. Hopefully, I may be the only one doing that too. So
Vivi
we may be kind of cut down for shows. We got a World Series of Fighting, Vivi, and stuff like that still. But
Yep, and the UFC Vivi tomorrow. I believe I'll be joining you for that one. So,
hmm
all right, if you care to or are so inclined, on Twitter he is at the Zane Simon. I am at Uncle Justice. What should they do when they watch this video on YouTube, Zane?
they should give it a thumbs up, which is the button that looks like a thumb, like this, and it's down there on your screen, not in my pants.
I could have a lot of fun blanking out the audio and making a GIF of that with some select text added, but
Nah,
that's for
you
another
can go
day.
for it.
I'm too lazy. That's too much work for me. But
Okay.
all right, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll catch you soon. Enjoy the fight.